Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that the land where we live is part of the territory and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. We pay our respect to the Anishinaabe, past, present, and future, as well as all of the other Indigenous peoples who call this territory home. We would also like to honor the Indigenous traditional knowledge holders who participated in the Traveling the Credit workshop series, who were so generous to share their time, energy, and knowledge with the participating youth. This podcast shares the experience of youth and the public who participated in one of the final segments of the Traveling the Credit program in the fall of 2017. Adele and Uma, who participated throughout the summer workshop series, volunteered to lead a nature walk at Terra Cotta Conservation Area. The walk focuses on the importance of conserving fresh water and the Indigenous history of the area. The girls started out by clarifying some of the common misconceptions about Indigenous peoples.
Traditionally, they lived in domes called wigwams, but they never lived in teepees because Anishinaabe were nomadic people. Although we often see teepees at outposts, stores, and tourist attractions, the inhabitants of this land did not live in teepees. People of the plains in Western Canada lived in teepees. The Anishinaabe grew crops in the summer, but moved around in the winter to hunt. They traded with the French and the English settlers on the Credit River. The New Credit First Nation made an alliance with the British against the Iroquois who were moving into Canada from the U.S. The New Credit Reserve is on Six Nations land that was surrendered to the Mississauga in 1847.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a wigwam and a teepee?
Well, one is made so it's like you can like move, and then a teepee.
Actually, you can move with both.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's a
But
structure.
a wigwam is like,
A
it's
dome.
round, kind of like this, and it's made with bark and different things just from nature. A teepee was usually made of some kind of like skins or later on cloth, canvas, and they're the ones that are like this.
Triangular
Yeah.
kind of shape. Ah, right.
So yeah, the domes would literally look
Right.
Like a beehive.
like a,
thing.
yeah.
Adele and Uma also passed on some of the knowledge that they acquired in the workshop with Joseph Pitawanakwit, a young Anishinaabe man who started an Indigenous outdoor education organization called the Creator's Garden.
And every plant like mimics the inside of our body. So a birch tree kind of looks like your skin, and it's good for your skin. So you can bathe in the bark, and it helps your skin problems. And it's good for psoriasis. And chaga is like muscles around it, and you can make it into tea. And the tea is good for cancer, diabetes, and cholesterol.
Orange, the orange thing there on the plant that is jewelweed, and the leaves of it repels water, and it can treat poison ivy. By when you crush the leaves up, or when you pick the plant up, it releases juice, and when you rub it on the affected area, it will cure it but it only cures it from the wet, like swampy species of poison ivy. And also, they're normally around, like here it's like wet and swampy, and so they're normally around the same area where poison ivy would be. Yeah.
Is there poison ivy in this rock?
Yeah.
There was a song.
And normally, because it grows around where the poison ivy would be, so it's kind of like
You get poisoned and find your antidote.
And then you just crush it up, and then if you get it on yourself, then you just rub it, and then it'll go away. Yeah.
So you crush the leaf and
You
the
just
flower?
crush the whole plant.
The whole plant.
Yeah. Just up a bunch of it, put it all over the face, and they wrapped it, and then he sucked in it, and then the next day it was like it never happened.
The girls also reviewed the history of the Mississaugas that they learned on a trip to the New Credit First Nation Reserve from Carolyn King.
The original village of the New Credit First Nation is the land where the Mississaugas golf course and country club is now. The community population suffered greatly by being hit with smallpox. They lost an estimated 1,000 members. they lost a lot of their culture, traditions, beliefs, etc. because of loss of language with the impact of residential schools.
The last workshop of the series was a trip to Island Lake with the Credit River Métis Council. We spent the morning learning about Métis history and culture, and the afternoon paddling the lake.
That even when one Métis person dies, the culture will still live, and they will never die out. The Métis people flag has 2 colors, red and blue. The red is for the English Métis, and the blue is for French.
The first workshop, with Mira Jones, an Indigenous artist and biologist, taught the youth a very important lesson in sustainability and foraging.
Just want to say, so here there's a lot of plants like this flower. If you want to pick it, you could pick this one, but you have to only have, there has to be more than 8 of them here before you can pick it, or else like it could it won't be really, if other people wanted to pick it, then they couldn't, because like then it'll be gone, and also because then it can't regrow itself, and then it can't, so then there'll be less, so you can't.
What's the name of it, this flower?
Oh, I don't know.
So
Aster.
Yeah, so your point is that if people overpick the flowers, they can't germinate?
Yeah, so if there's like here, there's like a lot more than 8, but if there isn't, if there's 8 or less, then you shouldn't pick it.
So that's the same rule for all the flowers, is it?
Yeah, we'll all plant.
Yeah.
One of the first workshops was with Tanya Chung Tiem Phuc, a lecturer from York University who is Indigenous to Guyana. She focused her workshop on the Credit River watershed and Indigenous perspectives on water and stewardship.
So a watershed is a land basin that collects water, waste, and sediment from a surrounding area into a body of water. And it includes all ecosystems within its boundaries, and typically it contains plants and animals that are attracted to water. And water is life-sustaining, and everyone needs it. And we're lucky to have access to water, because not all people have access to clean water, or they may have to walk a long way to get it. And the water quality decreases near the bottom of the watershed because it picks up all the junk, so the urban industrial agricultural waste products, as it travels down the watershed. And also urbanization tends to be concentrated down near the bottom of the watershed, so therefore there's also the highest concentration of pollution tends to be found. Yeah.
So climate change affects the watersheds by changing the river structure, by eroding banks, and so rivers are becoming wider and shallower. Shallower cool water changes habitat and decreases biodiversity by eliminating bottom-dwelling species. Keystone species are species whose presence or absence affects the entire health of the ecosystem. They are relied upon by many other species to provide food and keep predator pollutions in check. For example, brook trout is a native keystone species in the Credit River watershed.